The Law of One, Session 66, August 12, 1981.
Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now.
Questioner, could you give me an indication of the instrument's condition?
Ra, I am Ra. The vital energies are somewhat depleted at this time, but not seriously so. The physical energy level is extremely low. Otherwise, it is as previously stated.
Questioner, is there anything that we can do, staying within the first distortion, to seek aid from the Confederation in order to alleviate the instrument's physical problems?
Ra, I am Ra. No.
Questioner, can you tell me the most appropriate method for attempting to alleviate the instrument's physical problems?
Ra, I am Ra. The basic material has been covered before concerning the nurturing of this instrument. We recapitulate: the exercise according to ability, not to exceed appropriate parameters, the nutrition, the social intercourse with companions, the sexual activity in green ray or above, and in general, the sharing of the distortions of this group's individual experiences in an helpful, loving manner. These things are being accomplished with what we consider great harmony, given the density in which you dance. The specific attention and activities with which those with physical complex distortions may alleviate these distortions are known to this instrument. Finally, it is well for this instrument to continue the practices it has lately begun.
Questioner, which practices are those?
Ra, I am Ra. These practices concern exercises which we have outlined previously. We may say that the variety of experiences which this entity seeks is helpful, as we have said before, but as this instrument works in these practices, the distortion seems less mandatory.
Questioner, I would like to investigate the mechanism of healing using the crystallized healer. I am going to make a statement, and I would appreciate it if you would correct my thinking. It seems to me that once the healer has become properly balanced and unblocked with respect to energy centers, it is possible for him to act in some way as a collector and focuser of light, the same way that, or analogous to the way that a pyramid works, taking or collecting light through the left hand and emitting it through the right, this then, somehow, penetrating the first and seventh chakra envelope, vibratory envelope, you might say, of the body, and allowing for the realignment of energy centers of the entity to be healed. I'm quite sure that I'm not exactly correct on this and possibly considerably off. Could you rearrange my thinking so that it makes sense?
Ra, I am Ra. You are correct in your assumption that the crystallized healer is analogous to the pyramidal action of the King's Chamber position. There are a few adjustments we might suggest. Firstly, the energy which is used is brought into the field complex of the healer by the outstretched hand used in a polarized sense. However, this energy circulates through the various points of energy to the base of the spine and, to a certain extent, the feet, thus coming through the main energy centers of the healer, spiraling through the feet, turning at the red energy center towards a spiral at the yellow energy center, and passing through the green energy center in a microcosm of the King's Chamber energy configuration of prana, this then continuing for the third spiral through the blue energy center and being sent therefrom through the gateway back to intelligent infinity. It is from the green center that the healing prana moves into the polarized healing right hand and therefrom to the one to be healed. We may note that there are some who use the yellow ray configuration to transfer energy, and this may be done, but the effects are questionable and, with regard to the relationship between the healer, the healing energy, and the seeker, questionable due to the propensity for the seeker to continue requiring such energy transfers without any true healing taking place in the absence of the healer due to the lack of penetration of the armoring shell of which you spoke.
Questioner, now, a wanderer who has an origin from 5th or 6th density can attempt such a healing and have little or no results. This indicates to me that there is some function of the activated body, since can you tell me what the wanderer has lost and why it is necessary for him to regain certain balances and abilities to perfect his healing ability?
Ra, I am Ra. You may see the wanderer as the infant attempting to verbalize the sound complexes of your peoples. The memory of the ability to communicate is within the infant's undeveloped mind complex, but the ability to practice or manifest this, called speech, is not immediately forthcoming due to the limitations of the mind/body/spirit complex it has chosen to be a part of in this experience. So it is with the wanderer which, remembering the ease with which adjustments can be made in the home density, yet still, having entered 3rd density, cannot manifest that memory due to the limitations of the chosen experience. The chances of a wanderer being able to heal in 3rd density are only more than those native to this density because the desire to serve may be stronger and this method of service chosen.
Questioner, what about the ones with the dual, not the wanderers but the harvested and dual activated 3rd and 4th density bodies entities? Are they able to heal using the techniques that we have discussed?
Ra, I am Ra. In many cases this is so, but as beginners of 4th density, the desire may not be present.
Questioner, I'm assuming, then, that we have a wanderer with the desire attempting to learn the techniques of healing while, shall I say, trapped in 3rd density. He then, it seems to me, is primarily concerned with the balancing and unblocking of energy centers. Am I correct in this assumption?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Only insofar as the healer has become balanced may it be a channel for the balancing of another self. The healing is first practiced upon the self, if we may say this in another way.
Questioner, now as the healer approaches an other self to do the healing, we have a situation where the other self has, through programming of catalyst, possibly created a condition which is viewed as a condition needing healing. What is the situation and what are the ramifications of the healer acting upon a condition of programmed catalyst to bring about healing? Am I correct in assuming that in doing this healing, the programmed catalyst is useful to the one to be healed in that the one to be healed then becomes aware of what it wished to become aware of in programming the catalyst? Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. Your thinking cannot be said to be completely incorrect but shows a rigidity which is not apparent in the flow of the experiential use of catalyst. The role of the healer is to offer an opportunity for realignment or aid in realignment of either energy centers or some connection between the energies of mind and body, spirit and mind, or spirit and body. This latter is very rare. The seeker will then have the reciprocal opportunity to accept a novel view of the self, a variant arrangement of patterns of energy influx. If the entity, at any level, desires to remain in the configuration of distortion which seems to need healing, it will do so. If, upon the other hand, the seeker chooses the novel configuration, it is done through free will. This is one great difficulty with other forms of energy transfer in that they do not carry through the process of free will, as this process is not native to yellow ray.
Questioner, what is the difference, philosophically, between a mind/body/spirit complex healing itself through mental, shall I say, configuration or it being healed by an healer?
Ra, I am Ra. You have a misconception. The healer does not heal. The crystallized healer is a channel for intelligent energy which offers an opportunity to an entity that it might heal itself. In no case is there another description of healing. Therefore, there is no difference as long as the healer never approaches one whose request for aid has not come to it previously. This is also true of the more conventional healers of your culture, and if these healers could but fully realize that they are responsible only for offering the opportunity of healing, and not for the healing, many of these entities would feel an enormous load of misconceived responsibility fall from them.
Questioner, then in seeking healing, a mind/body/spirit complex would then be seeking in some cases a source of gathered and focused light energy. This source could be another mind/body/spirit complex sufficiently crystallized for this purpose, or the pyramid shape, or possibly something else. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. These are some of the ways an entity may seek healing. Yes.
Questioner, could you tell me the other ways that the entity could seek healing?
Ra, I am Ra. Perhaps the greatest healer is within the self and may be tapped with continued meditation, as we have suggested. The many forms of healing available to your peoples each have virtue and may be deemed appropriate by any seeker who wishes to alter the physical complex distortions or some connection between the various portions of the mind/body/spirit complex thereby.
Questioner, I have observed many activities known as psychic surgery in the area of the Philippine Islands. It was my assumption that these healers are providing what I would call a training aid, or a way of creating a reconfiguration of the mind of the patient to be healed, as the relatively naive patient observes the action of the healer in seeing the materialized blood, etc., then reconfigures the roots of mind to believe, you might say, the healing is done and, therefore, heals himself. Is this analysis that I made correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. We may speak slightly further upon this type of opportunity. There are times when the malcondition to be altered is without emotional, mental, or spiritual interest to the entity, and is merely that which has, perhaps by chance genetic arrangement, occurred. In these cases, that which is apparently dematerialized will remain dematerialized and may be observed as so by any observer. The malcondition which has an emotional, mental, or spiritual charge is likely not to remain dematerialized in the sense of the showing of the objective referent to an observer. However, if the opportunity has been taken by the seeker, the apparent malcondition of the physical complex will be at variance with the actual health, as you call this distortion, of the seeker, and the lack of experiencing the distortions which the objective referent would suggest still held sway. For instance, in this instrument the removal of 3 small cysts was the removal of material having no interest to the entity. Thus these growths remained dematerialized after the so-called psychic surgery experience. In other psychic surgery, the kidneys of this instrument were carefully offered a new configuration of beingness which the entity embraced. However, this particular portion of the mind/body/spirit complex carried a great deal of emotional, mental, and spiritual charge, due to this distorted functioning being the cause of great illness in a certain configuration of events which culminated in this entity's conscious decision to be of service. Therefore, any objective scanning of this entity's renal complex would indicate the rather extreme dysfunctional aspect which it showed previous to the psychic surgery experience, as you call it. The key is not in the continuation of the dematerialization of distortion to the eye of the beholder, but rather lies in the choosing of the newly materialized configuration which exists in time/space.
Questioner, would you explain that last comment about the configuration in time/space?
Ra, I am Ra. Healing is done in the time/space portion of the mind/body/spirit complex, is adopted by the form-making or etheric body, and is then given to the space/time physical illusion for use in the activated yellow ray mind/body/spirit complex. It is the adoption of the configuration which you call health by the etheric body in time/space which is the key to what you call health, not any event which occurs in space/time. In this process you may see the transdimensional aspect of what you call will, for it is the will, the seeking, the desire of the entity which causes the indigo body to use the novel configuration and to reform the body which exists in space/time. This is done in an instant and may be said to operate without regard to time. We may note that in the healing of very young children there is often an apparent healing by the healer in which the young entity has no part. This is never so, for the mind/body/spirit complex in time/space is always capable of willing the distortions it chooses for experience no matter what the apparent age, as you call it, of the entity.
Questioner, is this desire and will that operates through to the time/space section a function only of the entity who is healed, or is it also the function of the healer, the crystallized healer?
Ra, I am Ra. May we take this opportunity to say that this is the activity of the Creator. To specifically answer your query, the crystallized healer has no will. It offers an opportunity without attachment to the outcome, for it is aware that all is one and that the Creator is knowing itself.
Questioner, then the desire must be strong within the mind/body/spirit complex who seeks healing to be healed in order for the healing to occur? Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct on one level or another. An entity may not consciously seek healing and yet subconsciously be aware of the need to experience the new set of distortions which result from healing. Similarly, an entity may consciously desire healing greatly but within the being, at some level, find some cause whereby certain configurations which seem quite distorted are, in fact, at that level, considered appropriate.
Questioner, I assume that the reason for assuming the distortions appropriate would be that these distortions would aid the entity in its reaching its ultimate objective, which is a movement along the path of evolution in the desired polarity. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
Questioner, then in the case of an entity who becomes aware of its polarization with respect to service to others, it might find a paradoxical situation in the case where it was unable to fully serve because of distortions chosen to reach that understanding which it has reached. At this point it would seem that the entity who was aware of the mechanism might, through meditation, understand the necessary mental configuration for alleviating the physical distortion so that it could be of greater service to others at this particular nexus. Am I correct in this thinking?
Ra, I am Ra. You are correct, although we might note that there are often complex reasons for the programming of a distorted physical complex pattern. In any case, meditation is always an aid to knowing the self.
Questioner, is a vertical positioning of the spine useful or helpful in the meditative procedure?
Ra, I am Ra. It is somewhat helpful.
Questioner, I have a written question, 2 of them actually. The first is, would you please list the polarities within the body which are related to the balancing of the energy centers of the various bodies of the unmanifested entity?
Ra, I am Ra. In this question there lies a great deal of thought which we appreciate. It is possible that the question itself may serve to aid meditations upon this particular subject. Each unmanifested self is unique. The basic polarities have to do with the balanced vibratory rates and relationships between the first 3 energy centers and, to a lesser extent, each of the other energy centers. May we answer more specifically?
Questioner, possibly in the next session we will expand on that. I would like to ask the second question. What are the structure and contents of the archetypical mind, and how does the archetypical mind function in informing the intuition and conscious mind of an individual mind/body/spirit complex?
Ra, I am Ra. You must realize that we offered these concepts to you so that you might grow in your own knowledge of the self through the consideration of them. We would prefer, especially for this latter query, to listen to the observations upon this subject which the student of these exercises may make and then suggest further avenues of the refinement of these inquiries. We feel we might be of more aid in this way.
Questioner, you mentioned that an energizing spiral is emitted from the top of any pyramid and that you could benefit by placing this under the head for a period of 30 minutes or less. Can you tell me how this third spiral is helpful and what help it gives the entity who is receiving it?
Ra, I am Ra. There are substances which you may ingest which cause the physical vehicle to experience distortions towards an increase of energy. These substances are crude, working rather roughly upon the body complex, increasing the flow of adrenaline. The vibration offered by the energizing spiral of the pyramid is such that each cell, both in space/time and in time/space, is charged as if hooked to your electricity. The keenness of mind, the physical and sexual energy of body, and the attunement of will of spirit are all touched by this energizing influence. It may be used in any of these ways. It is possible to overcharge a battery, and this is the cause of our cautioning any who use such pyramidal energies to remove the pyramid after a charge has been received.
Questioner, is there a best material or optimal size for the small pyramid to go beneath the head?
Ra, I am Ra. Given that the proportions are such as to develop the spirals in the Giza pyramid, the most appropriate size for use beneath the head is an overall height small enough to make placing it under the cushion of the head a comfortable thing.
Questioner, there's no best material?
Ra, I am Ra. There are better materials which are, in your system of barter, quite dear. They are not that much better than substances which we have mentioned before. The only incorrect substances would be the baser metals.
Questioner, now, you mentioned the problems with the action in the king's chamber of the Giza-type pyramid. I am assuming if we use the same geometrical configuration that is used at the pyramid at Giza, this would be perfectly alright for the pyramid placed beneath the head, since we wouldn't be using the king's chamber radiations but only the third spiral from the top. And I'm also asking, would it be better to use a 60 degrees apex angle than the larger apex angle? Would it provide a better energy source?
Ra, I am Ra. For energy through the apex angle, the Giza pyramid offers an excellent model. Simply be sure the pyramid is so small that there is no entity small enough to crawl inside it.
Questioner, I assume that this energy then, this spiraling light energy, is somehow absorbed by the energy field of the body. Is this somehow connected to the indigo energy center? Am I correct in this guess?
Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The properties of this energy are such as to move within the field of the physical complex and irradiate each cell of the space/time body and, as this is done, irradiate also the time/space equivalent, which is closely aligned with the space/time yellow ray body. This is not a function of the etheric body or of free will. This is a radiation much like your sun's rays. Thus it should be used with care.
Questioner, how many applications of 30 minutes or less during a diurnal period would be appropriate?
Ra, I am Ra. In most cases, no more than one. In a few cases, especially where the energy will be used for spiritual work, experimentation with 2 shorter periods might be possible, but any feeling of sudden weariness would be a sure sign that the entity had been over-radiated.
Questioner, can this energy help in any way as far as healing of physical distortions?
Ra, I am Ra. There is no application for direct healing using this energy, although, if used in conjunction with meditation, it may offer to a certain percentage of entities some aid in meditation. In most cases it is most helpful in alleviating weariness and in the stimulation of physical or sexual activity.
Questioner, in a transition from 3rd to 4th density we have 2 other possibilities other than the type that we are experiencing now. We have the possibility of a totally positively polarized harvest and the possibility of a totally negatively polarized harvest that I understand have occurred elsewhere in the universe many times. When there is a totally negatively polarized harvest, when a whole planet, that is, has negatively polarized and makes the transition from third to fourth density, does the planet have the experience of the distortion of disease that this planet now experiences prior to that transition?
Ra, I am Ra. You are perceptive. The negative harvest is one of intense disharmony and the planet will express this.
Questioner, the planet has a certain set of conditions prior to transition into fourth density, that is in late third density, and then the conditions are different in early fourth density. Could you give me an example of a negatively polarized planet and the conditions in late third density and early fourth density so that I can see how they change?
Ra, I am Ra. The vibrations from third to fourth density change on a negatively oriented planet precisely as they do upon a positively oriented planet. With fourth density negative comes many abilities and possibilities of which you are familiar. The fourth density is more dense and it is far more difficult to hide the true vibrations of the mind/body/spirit complex. This enables fourth density negatives, as well as positives, the chance to form social memory complexes. It enables negatively oriented entities the opportunity for a different set of parameters with which to show their power over others and to be of service to the self. The conditions are the same as far as the vibrations are concerned.
Questioner, I was concerned about the amount of physical distortions, disease, and that sort of thing in third density negative just before harvest and in fourth density negative just after harvest or in transition. What are the conditions of the physical problems, disease, etc., at late third density negative?
Ra, I am Ra. Each planetary experience is unique. The problems, shall we say, of bellicose actions are more likely to be of pressing concern to late third density negative entities than the Earth's reactions to negativity of the planetary mind, for it is often by such warlike attitudes on a global scale that the necessary negative polarization is achieved. As fourth density occurs, there is a new planet and new physical vehicle system gradually expressing itself, and the parameters of bellicose actions become those of thought rather than manifested weapons.
Questioner, well then is physical disease and illness as we know it on this planet rather widespread on a third density negative planet just before harvest into fourth density negative?
Ra, I am Ra. Physical complex distortions of which you speak are likely to be less found as fourth density negative begins to be a probable choice of harvest due to the extreme interest in the self which characterizes the harvestable third density negative entity. Much more care is taken of the physical body as well as much more discipline being offered to the self mentally. This is an orientation of great self-interest and self-discipline. There are still instances of the types of disease which are associated with the mind complex distortions of negative emotions such as anger. However, in an harvestable entity these emotional distortions are much more likely to be used as catalyst in an expressive and destructive sense as regards the object of anger.
Questioner, I am trying to understand the way that disease and bodily distortions are generated with respect to polarities, both positive and negative. It seems that they are generated in some way to create the split or polarization, that they have a function in creating the original polarization that occurs in third density. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is not precisely correct. Distortions of the bodily or mental complex are those distortions found in beings which have need of experiences which aid in polarization. These polarizations may be those of entities which have already chosen the path or polarization to be followed. It is more likely for positively oriented individuals to be experiencing distortions within the physical complex due to the lack of consuming interest in the self and the emphasis on service to others. Moreover, in an unpolarized entity catalyst of the physical distortion nature will be generated at random. The hopeful result is, as you say, the original choice of polarity. Oftentimes this choice is not made but the catalyst continues to be generated. In the negatively oriented individual, the physical body is likely to be more carefully tended and the mind disciplined against physical distortions.
Questioner, this planet, to me, seems to be what I would call a cesspool of distortions. This includes all diseases and malfunctions of the physical body in general. It would seem to me that, on the average, this planet would be very, very high on the list if we just took the overall amount of these problems. Is my feeling correct in this assumption?
Ra, I am Ra. We will review previous material. Catalyst is offered to the entity. If it is not used by the mind complex, it will then filter through to the body complex and manifest as some form of physical distortion. The more efficient the use of catalyst, the less physical distortion to be found. There are, in the case of those you call wanderers, not only a congenital difficulty in dealing with the third density vibratory patterns but also a recollection, however dim, that these distortions are not necessary or usual in the home vibration. We overgeneralize as always, for there are many cases of pre-incarnative decisions which result in physical or mental limitations and distortions, but we feel that you are addressing the question of widespread distortions towards misery of one form or another. Indeed, on some third-density planetary spheres catalyst has been used more efficiently. In the case of your planetary sphere there is much inefficient use of catalyst and, therefore, much physical distortion. We have enough energy available for one query at this time.
Questioner, then I will ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact.
Ra, I am Ra. Continue as always in love. All is well. You are conscientious. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.